Just comb your hair, go and wash your face. It's been a real long time since you've seen the light of day. So let thoughts come as they may, idiot parade. Everybody all smiles when you're back in the seat again. All aboard the Petty Express to a beautiful darkness. It's full steam ahead to ride the rails to our next destination. Yeah!
Hey guys, this is Mo, and we are here for the verdict. We did get a verdict in our case that we were watching, the Bedtime Red Rum case. I don't believe he's going to have sentencing right after. I think it's just the verdict from what I was able to watch. But there were a lot of charges, so they have to go and I think talk about all of those. And then there was a new case that came up that looks like self-defense arson. And when I heard self-defense arson, well, I was here for it. So thank you, Wolfram, for doing the Modly Mod stuff. Good morning, Kathy, Michelle, and DK Cripple. So here we are. Let's get to the verdict.
Not presented, was not heard. We know, we expected, based on what the prosecution said, to hear from his wife at the time, the mother of the two children. Guess what? She didn't testify.
You know, when you have sweet defendant, that's an even bigger.
Cut me off and go back into court. We know he's been charged with first-degree murder. Jury can also include lessers. That was decided. That was in the jury instructions. What do you think might happen, given it's almost 7 hours of deliberation?
You know, I think that they could very well agree. I
think the judge is.
All right, the verdict form is in order. If you would publish the verdict and poll the jury, please.
Yes, ma'am. State of Florida versus Jermaine Bass. Case number 22 CF 011717A, Trial Division 3, verdict form. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1, murder in the first degree. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree, Jayla Bass, as charged. And during the commission of the offense, did the defendant personally carry, display, use, threaten, or attempt to use any weapon or firearm? Yes. Did the defendant actually possess a firearm? Yes. Did the defendant discharge the firearm? Yes. Did the discharge cause death of the victim? Yes. 12 of the 12 of us find the killing was premeditated murder. 12 of the 12 of us find the killing was premeditated murder and felony murder. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 2, aggravated child abuse. The defendant is guilty of aggravated child abuse as charged. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 3, aggravated.
Okay.
The defendant is guilty of aggravated child abuse as charged. We, the jury, find as follows as to count 4, attempted murder in the first degree, Jermaine J.J. Bass.
I don't know what's going on with
Jermaine J.J. Bass as charged. And during the commission of the offense, did the defendant personally carry, display, use, threaten, or attempt to use any weapon or firearm? Yes. Did the defendant actually possess a firearm? Yes. Did the defendant discharge the firearm? Yes. Did the discharge cause great bodily harm to the victim? Yes. So say we all, dated this 27th day of February 2025, Juror number 1, foreperson of the jury. Juror number 1, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 2, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 3, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 4, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 5, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 6, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 8, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 10, are these your true and correct verdicts?
They are.
Juror number 12, are these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 14, are these your true and correct verdicts? Thank you. I can't see.
You missed one.
I was 12.
You missed 11.
11, excuse me. Juror number 11, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
And juror number 12, are these your true and correct verdicts?
I can't see.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know that you have spent a considerable amount of time and effort today deliberating on this case, and I cannot thank you enough for that, as well as your patience and with us and hard work all week. As you've now seen, it is why we need people like you who respond down with a jury service summons to handle the cases and the disputes that the parties cannot resolve among themselves. So you are essential and a true backbone to our system of justice, and I cannot tell you how much you are appreciated by me personally, as well as all of the judges here in Tampa, Hillsborough County. That much being said, all of my constant admonitions about not talking about the case are obviously lifted. You can do as much speaking about the case as you would like to, or discussion or investigation or whatever you'd like to know in addition to what you've heard during the course of this trial. I do hope if you share your trial experience with others, it does have a somewhat positive spin so that when they get a jury service.
She is not over here saying, look, I know that you were involved in a kid case and that was upsetting, but please tell people we have good food. Whew. Okie dokie. I'm simply trying to hear when they're going to do sentencing.
Summons, they too will come down to the courthouse, as you all have this week, to serve the citizens of Hillsborough, as you all have. I spent a considerable amount of time as a trial lawyer before I became a judge. I loved to talk to jurors after cases to see how the presentation went and what questions jurors had or didn't have, or just talk about deliberations in general. That option is open to you. Of course, you're not required to do that, but if you wanted to talk to any of the lawyers, or if you have any feedback for me, let the bailiffs know and they'll tell you not only you have my contact information, you're welcome to get back in contact with me, or if you want to come back in and speak to any of the lawyers about their cases, you're welcome to do that as well. But officially, your jury service is concluded with the thanks of both parties and with the thanks of all of my colleagues, the judges here in Tampa, Florida. So thank you very much for your service. Maybe we will see you down here next time you get a jury service summons, but thank you for all of your efforts this week. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. All rise.
Guilty on all 4 counts. I'm not too surprised. Let's bring back in former prosecutor Chris Ann Hall. It was a case in which not only did he...
All right, so this is the case that I found, and let me read you an article about this particular case. So this is Colorado versus Stacy Rodriguez. And this is in Greenlee, Colorado. A Weld County jury got its first look Thursday into what happened on an October night in 2022 that resulted in a Greenlee man dead with multiple stab wounds to his neck left to burn inside his own home. Prosecutors painted a picture of how they believe 23-year-old Stacy Rodriguez, along with her former co-defendant and ex-girlfriend, Hosanna Varelia, 26, killed Chris Dickerson, 35, then burned down his home. 2, cover up their unaliving. And it was about 6 hours, 30 minutes, I believe, for that case. So almost 7 hours. Now, the defense has a different telling of the events, stating that Dickerson invited 2 young women to his home, made them feel so threatened that Rodriguez, stabbed him in self-defense. Rodriguez faces charges of first-degree murder after deliberation, second-degree burglary, first-degree arson, and tampering with a deceased human body, according to Colorado records. Now, she pled not guilty to all charges on May 6, 2024. Now, her co-accomplice entered a plea agreement in November, pleading guilty to charges of first-degree arson, tampering with evidence, and accessory to murder. She was sentenced to 32 years in prison, with a chance to reduce that sentence with truthful testimony against Rodriguez. So, this will be interesting because, you've got 2 women. Now, one has turned state's evidence. You have self-defense arson, which I had never heard of. So this is our new case. And we have pronouns on his judge, desk. So we know that he is a he, him, or his. Which, by the goatee, I wouldn't have guessed anything different. Are you kidding? How is this video unavailable? It's from Court TV. Law and Crime got their... All right.
Good morning. You're here because what she did. You're here because of what she did on October 3rd, 2021. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear a lot of facts. You're going to be asked to use your reason and your common sense to filter through it and render a just verdict. And you're all equipped to do that. But there's a famous quote that will help in that process, help in your process. And that's, let us take things as we find them. Let us not attempt to distort them into what they are not. We cannot make facts. All our wishing cannot change them. We must use them. And you will use the facts. And the facts are that on October 3rd, 2021, Christopher Dickerson was viciously and violently murdered in an unnecessary and unjustifiable way. And you're going to hear that law enforcement was dispatched to his home that he had purchased earlier that year by his neighbors as they called, afraid that he was there, afraid that he was inside. And you're going to see the response from police as they get on scene.
Okay, your car.
This is Officer Flores, Greeley PD. Is anyone in there? That answer is a resounding yes. That person that was in there is why we're here. That person that was in there was Christopher Dickerson. He was a son. He was a friend to many.
Objection, invoking sympathy.
All right, the court will overrule the objection.
He was a colleague. He loved animals. He loved his dog.
Renewing our objection.
All right, Mr. Praley, if you'll move on.
And his life, taken by her hands, is why we are here. And ladies and gentlemen, the way his life was taken is going to be tough for you to see.
Objection, invoking sympathy.
All right, the court will I'm sorry, did you get a record of that, Sheriff? Okay, the court will overrule the objection.
It's the way it was. It's the way it is. And you're going to hear that Christopher Dickerson was burnt beyond recognition. He was burnt so badly that he had to be identified in part by his dental records. But ladies and gentlemen, it's not as it first seems. Because Christopher Dickerson on October 3rd, 2021, was not killed by that fire. He was killed by a process of vicious and violent force. And you'll hear on the autopsy that it was noted that there was a particular thing coming out of his neck.
So this new case was one that I basically begged Baker. I was like, please, dear Baker and tiny baby Jesus, do you know of a case that's starting that doesn't have children in it? But yeah, I don't like that he's trying to get into feelings. But also, that little, portable fire extinguisher is going to do jack crap nothing on a blaze that, I mean, I'm glad that they attempted to do what they could, but a portable emergency fire extinguisher is going to do nothing for that blaze. Maybe there's more to this than is coming out if the state started going with emotion. I don't know, but the Chris Dickerson was found stabbed to death in his home. As you can see, the home was also set on fire. Now the state alleges that the woman kind of directly behind the attorney that's talking at the lectern stabbed him and then set the fire to destroy any evidence that she had stabbed him. Now, what the defense says is that, Mr. Dickerson invited this woman and her ex-girlfriend over, made them both feel so uncomfortable that she rightly stabbed him, and they set the fire to, I guess, again, hide evidence of their crime. So there is this woman's ex-girlfriend and former co-defendant will be actually testifying against her. So we'll have all the things coming out, I'm sure.
And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear that was a metal file. You're going to get to see it. and it had a handle on it. And you're going to get to see that the pointy part sticking out would be where the handle was.
Objection. Facts not in evidence. Can we approach?
Sure.
Well, he's getting off to a great start.
May I proceed?
Yes, please.
And so the pointy part sticking out of Mr. Dickerson's neck, you'll hear in regards to a likely handle that had broken off or burnt off. And that the blunt part of this file was plunged into the victim's neck not once. What you're looking at would have been the last one. It stayed in his neck. It's the only thing that makes sense. But what you'll hear from Dr. Burson, an objective pathologist or county coroner, is that he notes there.
I mean, I'm not a doctorologist, but I don't think you come back from that. And it would make sense that he would have to explain why the pointy end is not actually, the where the sharp end went in, if that makes sense. So I would need it explained to me, because I'd be like, did they get him from the other side and it went all the way through? So now I understand why he needed to explain the little bent piece, because holy God. Yeah, he is taking a lot of dramatic pauses. He is totally Shatnering it up or calculating it up. Got such a crick in my neck.
There are 5 separate and distinct stab wounds in Chris's neck. And you will be asked to consider that using reason and common sense. Plunging a piece of metal with such force into a neck and taking it out. Into the neck and taking it out. Back in.
Sir, how can you make a murder/arson boring? I feel like we're watching Bueller. It's like out, and she plunged the knife out, and back in, and out. I get where he's going, that you premeditate, especially with a file, to stabulate someone that hard. I get where he's trying to go with this. But phrasing. Yeah, I don't know if he's just really this, mellow, but could we have some emotion just a little bit?
Back out, back in, back out, back in. All in the...
He's trying to kill me. We are going... We're all going to hell. No, he's actually doing it, Boosh, which is why I was trying to cover my face when I started giggling. It's his unaffected voice too, like, and back out, and back in, and back out, and back. What in the name of all that is holy hell am I watching here? Sir, I don't know that this needs to be said, but could we bring up the energy a little bit?
The neck region. All in a place directed at a person where you know there are arteries trying to kill. And you'll hear specifically through Dr. Burson that the carotid artery was hit. And that will be depicted by Dr. Burson. And he will opine what that would mean and how that's a bloodletting process and how much blood that would take and the coagulation in that area and the trauma. And you'll get to see the object, and the blunt end is what's going in his neck. And you'll get to think about that using reason and common sense when you're deciding murder in the first degree. And you're to consider all the evidence in light of your observations and experience in life. That's why you were selected. Now, a lot of this is not going to be a difficult decision as to me meeting my elements for you at all. And so we're going to go through that very quickly. But I, again, have to prove that the defendant in the state of Colorado at or about the date and place charge of October 3rd. We'll talk about the mental state of after deliberation and intent and how that corresponds with self-defense and specifically causing the death of Christopher Dickerson. And Dr. Burson will testify for you extensively. 5 stab wounds. 5 distinct stab wounds. He will opine that the cause of death was sharp force injuries to the neck, and that the manner of death was homicide.
Oh, if you don't know how to work PowerPoint, don't use one.
Now keep in mind, this autopsy takes place a day or two after they discover Chris being burnt that severely. Nearly 100% of his body is burnt. But you're going to get the whole picture in this case, the totality of the circumstances, the facts that you need to determine what a person was thinking.
You needed a PowerPoint for that little bit of information you were disseminating? Okay, all right. You know what? This is, sweetie, this is your trial. Far be it from me to take and ask questions.
When they were acting. Not just then, but total. That's going to be your job. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get to compare that if and when you receive self-defense. And you're going to get to think, is that reasonable? Is that necessary? Does that make sense? Those will be the questions you are asking of yourself and others, particularly as to her actions on that day. So immediately after, Chris is stabbed 5 times in a close region in his neck.
Okay, you can just say in his neck. I mean, the necular region of a person isn't really that extensive. I mean, maybe you could say in a tight grouping of stab wounds, but you don't need to say like in a very close region in the necular region near his. This is not a good. This is Mo's first intro level of PowerPoint. Like, you guys, I'm so cool. And then your guys were like, no, sweetie, but you did try.
You'll get to hear what happened after. And to be very clear, the investigation took a different path, which I'm going to get into for you. as to how we get here, so that you understand why we're here today specifically with her. Okay? And so what you're going to hear is that when officers got to that residence after that fire and pull Chris's burnt body out, there's a lot of things that start making very little sense. And specifically, they go to the bedroom. And they see all these things laid out on a bed. You will get to decide if you think Chris lived that way or not. Okay? Well, what you'll get to see is that there's a particular item, a jewelry box, opened on the bed from Zales. And you'll get to see when those items are taken away, this void. You'll hear from experts in fire describing that, well, it's pretty obvious when you look at this picture, you can tell what was there at the time the fire was started and what wasn't based on the different coloring. And that's October 3rd. That's what they notice. And so shortly around that time, the victim's father, Alan.
How can you make cops coming up to a raging inferno, finding a dead person inside, then bringing that unfortunate person outside to realize he's been red-rummed, 7 times in the neck? I mean, how do you make that boring? How do you make that story boring? Because this prosecutor has. Welcome, Shelley B. This prosecutor has made this class, or this story, so incredibly boring.
Dickerson, after he's notified about his son, and after being introduced to the Greeley Police Department, that they're investigating these circumstances, being introduced to Mr. Burroughs, Alan Dickerson starts providing assistance right away. And specifically, he helps as a power of attorney for his son, helping with bank records, phone number, phone records, and Google location records. And you'll hear a lot about the Google location records. You'll hear from a lot of people that are much more tech savvy than probably you could imagine about your phones track a lot of things.
I'm sorry.
Objection, bolstering.
All right, the court will overrule the objection.
People who specialize in technology.
The Hindenburg would be done burning by the time he's like, guys, something's happening. The colors. Dear Lord, if you could see this.
We're going to come in and talk about you have an Android device that's connected to Google. You might be sharing your location at a lot of places. Maybe you know that, maybe you don't.
My wife sure let me know that
But
when I
all
was
those
on a
things are
site.
provided, and specifically Alan Dickerson goes into his son's account. He downloads those records and those locations, and he provides them to Detective Burroughs. What does Detective Burroughs do? He starts following all of those things. He starts tracking movement. He starts ordering records. He starts obtaining surveillance, bank records, places, locations, movement of travel, all these things. Lots of sleepless nights. And what you're going to hear is that he's able to see that Chris, on that night, goes out to the bars downtown, right across the street. And you'll see Chris on the left, and you'll see him talking to a female who's later identified as Dolores V. Hill. And you'll see that she's discussing a phone, and there's going to be cameras at these places with times during these places, and he's using all of these things in conjunction with each other to figure out his location, his activities, and what he's doing, right?
Does his shirt say straight out of Eugene? All right, well, he was going out to the bar, apparently hugging everyone with flannel shirts on, as you do.
And so, for example, in People's Exhibit 81, you're going to hear that at the time of this exchange that's on camera, where there's this number that Investigator Burroughs, or Detective Burroughs, I apologize, that he's looking at the phone records, the movement, the surveillance, and he's able to see, okay, Chris and Dolores, their phones are connecting. He's able to say that I see him on camera, and he's able to track him and what he's doing, his movement. And ultimately, he follows him around downtown Greeley, and he sees Chris leaving on People's Exhibit 88. And he's looking for clues. And he sees...
Well, the state states, and based on all of his stuff being piled up on the bed and also an open jewelry box, that it was, basically, oh, we'll come over to your house and earthly delights, and then they were going to incapacitate and rob him, but maybe the incapacitation went too far. So it looks like they were robbing him, they murdered him, robbed him, and thought that the fire was going to burn up all the evidence of that. Now, what the defense says is that he invited these two young women to his house, made both of them feel so uncomfortable that she had to stab him 7 times in self-defense. And then they decided, while we already have done this, let's look through his house, take some stuff, and make a fire to, cover up all the evidence. So, sort of the same timeline, different ways we got there. Although, if the defense has a better story at this point.
Sees this interaction from surveillance on People's 88. Now, there's video. Not all video is going to be published, but there's this interaction with this silver Malibu and these distinct rims, and he sees this, and he puts that among things to look into. And he goes through all the other surveillance, and he then tracks back, who are those people in the silver Malibu? What do they look like? What's that car? All those types of things. And when he tracks all the way back, it comes to 2 people, 2 females. And he goes through this process, and he's able to say that the defendant is wearing the black, she's got this visor on, she's got her hair up in a bun, and this other individual is Hosanna Varela. And again, that process takes a lot of time of figuring out their specific names. But he knows that these individuals, based on their movement, are associated.
So we have started a new case. We are listening to the state's boring, and I don't know how you can make this story boring, but basically the state's story is that Chris, this Chris Dickerson met these 2, women at a bar. He invited them back to his house, to who the hell knows. But somewhere during the course of this, one of the women, the woman who's currently on defense over there, so Stacy Rodriguez, stabbed him 7 times with a nail file, or a file of some sort, a metal file. Well, then, in both stories, they decided after the red rumming, they were going to rob and then set the house on fire to keep all the evidence from getting out. Well, Now, in the defense's telling of this story, or what they're going to allege, is that Chris Dickerson made both of these women feel so uncomfortable in his home that they acted in self-defense. And okay, they might have robbed a little bit and arsoned, but it was totally self-defense. So it'll be interesting because the state is about as boring as, well, pure uncut Colombian Ambien. This man is just absolutely, it is Judge Vincent G. Gill. So yeah, but the state's attorney is the most boring human being. I don't know how you could take finding a house ablaze, getting someone out of it who has been burnt beyond recognition, finding out that no, they have a metal file still stuck in their neck. It could, how you could make that story, look, I know, but he made that boring.
With that Malibu and that encounter that we just saw.
Oh, Vicente,
So what
sorry.
Detective Burrows does is he keeps looking. And he sees that after this encounter, and after identifying those people, that Chris is heading
Him,
home,
and his, don't
walking
forget
away
it.
from the bars. And you'll get to see, maybe you recognize this, maybe you don't. It's gonna be the window at the Rio, right across the street. And you'll see Chris walk by in Exhibit 90. And then right after that, you'll see that in dealing with that, there is a specific vehicle that's shown after Chris had walked by, and it's that Chevy Malibu. And then he's able to obtain surveillance that had been gathered in and around Chris's house on the early morning in question and the night before, from 3 different neighbors, and he starts piecing this together, spending hours and hours of viewing this.
Bolstering.
All right, the court will overrule the objection.
And what you're going to hear is that Detective Burrows was able to identify, based on a variety of things and corroborating it along the way, that when you saw Chris walking to his car, ultimately he drives home, he pulls into his garage, and after he gets home, that Chevy Malibu pulls into his driveway. And ultimately, they go inside for a while. And you're going to hear, again, at that point, sometime later, that the defendant, Hosanna Varela, and Mr. Dickerson leave. Again, they come to the names of these individuals later. But they leave, and he's able to look at phone records. That Dolores Vigil that you previously saw at the bar exchanging phone numbers, that he leaves the house, and ultimately they're communicating, and they drive around, and ultimately he comes back. And you'll get to see surveillance footage that, remember, the Malibu had been parked.
My work was going to insist we put our pronouns on our email signatures. I was going to identify as a golden retriever, and my pronouns would be, who's a good boy? That's my thing. Yes, yes. I mean, unless he's wearing a wig and I'm going to be confused, then I don't think we need them.
In the driveway. Ultimately, they move it out of the driveway. They're
So she's
lit up by Chris's
always
brake
been
lights
fairly
as he's
big.
backing out of his driveway. And then you can use the Google location at 254 around 8th Avenue and 11th Street to show where Chris's phone was. The group then returns back to his house. Hours go by.
Oh, I thought he was your husband, so I'm glad you explained that, Squid, because I would have made the wrong associations. Again, how can you make multiple stabulation in the neck with a nail file to the point that it's still stuck in x-rays? Boring. How can you make this boring? And yet this state's attorney has fought against all odds to make this boring, more boring than my trigonometry teacher. It's a talent.
And Detective Burrows, candidly, at that point, does not know what happens in that house other than what Dr. Burson had said.
Objection to the slide 403. Can we approach?
Yes.
You know, when you have him at 1.25, he actually sounds like he has some energy. That's what his wife said also, allegedly in Minecraft. Giggity.
So he knows that Chris was stabbed 5 times in the neck, and he continues to watch the surveillance. And what was noted by initial officers, and what was noted by other people who look at this footage, knowing that they're looking at Chris's house and the surrounding area, is that ultimately one person comes out, goes down, and starts the car.
I'm beginning to like this. This is the state's attorney. This is not the defense. How do you need to take a drink of water? You haven't done anything vigorous.
And you'll hear from Detective Burrows after watching this multiple times that he notes that, yeah, this door opens. I see this figure consistent with the females. He differentiates from Chris, and he says, I see a female go, walk down, get in the car, but I didn't see 2. And approximately 3 minutes later, 3 minutes elapse, okay? And then a second figure comes out.
He's still pausing.
Lights.
Why is he Shatnering the shit out of this? I feel like I'm listening to William Shatner do I'm Slim Shady, all you other Slim Shadys. I mean...
To the vehicle are shut off. Figure comes out, slowly, walks down, gets into the passenger side. And they drive away. Calmly. Now, the interesting thing for you is that at that same time that you just saw those 2 larger females leave that residence.
I wasn't going to say anything, but, you know, one of the women, and I do believe it is the defendant on trial right now, is a much larger woman than anyone else, you know, in the situation. I mean, we saw, you know, Chris Dickerson. He was a skinny guy. And then you see this woman who's, you know, spherical a bit. So it's like we see someone slowly lumbering down the driveway. Well, I can't imagine who that is.
Drive away. That'll be captured on several videos. Chris's phone leaves, too. The 2 females leave and drive away, and Chris's phone leaves. And ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get to hear about those locations. And you'll get to use that in conjunction with Dr. Burson's testimony. Chris didn't die of being burnt. He died by being stabbed 5 times. So there's no way that at that point, He's just giving his phone to people he had just met that night, because that's what will come out. Chris did not know these girls.
Have fun with that.
He had met them in that alley. They had gone back to his place. They had taken his life. They had taken...
I don't know who needs to hear this today, but if you meet two random chicks in an alley, don't invite them to your house. Again, I don't know who needed that warning, but if you needed that warning, today is your day. Mama Mo says don't take random skank hoes that you met in a side alley home. Dang it. I know, Sticky Widget, the after school special already comes out after you've already tried, you know, jumping off a bridge. Possibly.
taken his ring, they'd taken his phone, and they leave. And that will form the basis for the burglary. The initial burglary is for the theft of his phone, of the ring, and other items. But there's more. There's more. There's burglary that deals with arson and tampering with Chris's deceased body. And what you're going to hear is that after leaving at 5:12, they drive around for a period of time, and they return. And when they return, they pull back into the neighborhood, pull outside of Chris's house. One individual on the passenger side calmly walks in, opens the front door to Mr. Dickerson's residence when he is dead, does whatever she does for a few minutes, and sets the place on fire. You'll see the return. It's a cul-de-sac, by the way. See him park. Slowly walk up. Open the door to a deceased Mr. Dickerson's house. Without authorization, without invitation, as he's likely laying there, dead, having bled out. And approximately 2 minutes go by. You'll hear that
Yes,
the person...
this is ring
that no
footage
person
from
was ever
neighbors.
observed of getting out of the driver's seat. And 2 minutes later, you're going to see it, look at the window, and then watch the exit. Bright lights, flickering.
Yeah, don't crime. Everyone has a ring hit camera. Have a good day, Shelly B.
Opening of the door,
Well, not a kid
calmly
one.
walking down. Getting into the car.
Why are you narrating this?
And driving away. And the fire begins to go and go and go. You'll be able to look at those Google records, specifically see that lap, that Chris is on the ground, dead, but Chris's phone has made this lap, has returned to his residence, and leaves at the
Yes,
same
we
time
get it.
that vehicle.
Yes, we get it. We get it. We understand the point. Yes, Chris did not take this cell phone out for a jog. They went out
Vehicle leaves and drives off.
This,
And ladies
this
and
is-
gentlemen, you're going to hear a lot about technology in the city of Green, specifically about automatic license plate readers. And you're going to hear that at approximately 541 35th Avenue and 25th Street, that Malibu with the plate AER G95 is seen driving. And that location will matter because that connects all those dots. And that's used as an investigative tool for Detective Burrows. And that Google location that was provided by Mr. Dickerson continues to assist in that it shows that path. And ultimately, at
no.
approximately 6:13, looking at all the factors, Detective Burrows says something here based on automatic license plate readers and the path of travel. The car doesn't match anymore. And an automatic license plate reader is what it sounds like. It takes a picture of a person's plate, connects to registration, shows a time frame. It's a photo connected to a database. And so ultimately, Detective Burrows, who's very familiar with working auto cases, uses the location where he knows there'd be another automatic license plate reader and sees, hey, the timing works for this big Chevy Tahoe, plate CEB P61, and connects all those dots. Runs that registration, comes up with the people, starts looking at the two females that he had dealt with, and figures out who the two suspects are. Stacy Rodriguez, the defendant, and Hosanna Varela. He continues to connect those dots, and ultimately, it progresses to make an arrest. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think a lot of the discussion detailed that we're going to be talking about self-defense. And you are to use reason and common sense in guiding you in that. You'll be provided the law. You'll be provided all the circumstances and facts. But you're also going to hear that on October 16th, nearly 2 weeks after this, there's an event that occurs. And keep in mind that these neighbors had been providing videos of what they captured, what they didn't. And you're going to hear that on October 16th at 7:46 a.m. on another ALPR in the 1700 block of 25th Street, sees that Malibu. And Detective Burrows will be able to zoom in and opine that based on all the features, the earring, Miss Rodriguez's chin, a particular shirt she was wearing.
Not her chin got her caught. Not her chin.
That it's Miss Rodriguez. And ladies and gentlemen, you'll get to hear that at that same time, the footage that's being captured from those same residences catches that the defendant comes back to the scene of the crime. You'll see Mr. Dickerson's house. You'll see his windows boarded up after being burnt. She pulls right up. Right up by where she murdered somebody, stabbing him 5 times. You will get to think about a lot of concepts with self-defense. You're opposed to a lot of hypotheticals. This is reality. You will get the facts. You must use those facts. And ultimately, you'll get to decide how guilt and regret would ever play a factor. If you justifiably saved your own life, would you regret doing that? You're going to hear that on October 30th, 2021, when Detective Burrows writes for a variety of documents and databases, that he gets the defendant's Facebook records.
Oh no,
And he
not
begins reading.
Facebook.
And again, at this point, he just has them as suspects. And he discovers this after the fact. Facebook is not quick. He goes through this process that you'll hear about, and he's still doing his investigation, and he orders them so that he captures things.
This opening hasn't been quick. Do I get to sue you? I've already forgotten what this case is about. I'm so disinterested in the way you've presented it. And it's so unnecessarily winding when it doesn't need to be. And you're narrating videos, so you don't need to narrate.
At a certain point. And what you're going to hear is that the defendant, on either the 29th or 30th of October, UTC, you'll hear about that, you subtract 6 hours. The defendant writes, "I think that thing I did is getting to me now." Like the guilt and regret. And I can't even talk to nobody about it. Could have talked to him. Could have talked to the Greeley Police Department. Nearly 27 days after Chris was stabbed 5 times. That's what's going to be discovered. The investigation continues. And on November 11th, 2021, the defendant is arrested, as well as Miss Varela. And ladies and gentlemen, if the defendant chooses not to testify, you all swore that you would not use that against her in any way, shape, or form. I trust you with that. But you will hear that she made statements on this date. And she denies it all. So in the text message before, she says, "I can't talk to anybody about this regret, this guilt." She had the chance on this day.
Gotcha. So we're working on a case. Do you mind if I talk to you for a couple minutes about it? Okay. Is this person familiar? No. Okay. Have you ever seen him before? No. Okay. Okay. Have you ever been to 23? Corrections. 24, 13, 15th Avenue Court rated? So we're off like by 25th Street, 11th Avenue. No, what's that? Well, it's a house. Okay. She doesn't believe she's ever been to the 24, 13, 15 Avenue Court address. She doesn't know anybody who drives a silver Chevy Malibu. Is that right? Have you ever driven a Chevy Malibu?
Well, I mean, she didn't know
Never
it
been
was
to
a
the
silver
house.
Malibu.
Never seen Chris. Never driven a Chevy Malibu. Doesn't know anybody who does. And then she's told that she's being arrested. Her response, after all that time, is there proof of that? And you'll get to factor that into your consideration.
No, I mean, the police just arrest people and then they're like, "Oh, proof? Darn. Take those shackles off of her."
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear again that Hosanna Varela was also arrested on that day, and you'll hear that she provided an interview with her lawyers present. And ladies and gentlemen, she outlines what she saw, what she heard. And you'll hear, confirming what we had from phone records, that they had not met before that point. She didn't know Chris. Stacy didn't know Chris. That's consistent with phone records because we never saw any interaction. That essentially just happened in that they were driving, Chris was walking, there's the discussion of going back to his place for an after party. And so they go back to his place, and he had some beer, he had some vodka. And according to Hosanna Varela, the defendant was giving him vodka while they were taking water. Or part water. And you will get to ask yourself why that is. Looking at all the circumstances. Why would you be feeding somebody an intoxicating substance that you weren't taking yourself? And make no mistake about it, there's going to be a lot of blame cast on Christopher Dickerson. He was drunk. Very drunk. That's what his toxicology says. And he'll be blamed for that. And you'll get to decide if this was part of the plan. Hosanna Varela will make it very clear to you she never saw Christopher yielding a weapon.
Not yielding a weapon, wielding a weapon.
He never threatened to kill them, rape them, anything like that. That she doesn't recall any physical force by Chris, but is certain, no weapon, no threats, I'm going to kill you, nothing. And you'll hear that there was an argument, according to Hosanna, between Christopher Dickerson and the defendant. And ultimately, you're going to hear from Hosanna that according to her, Christopher was pushed. And then at some point, the defendant took a beer bottle over to him and smashed it on him. And that Christopher Dickerson was yelling for them to leave, pleading with them to leave. Ms. Varela will say, and has said, that she wasn't afraid that night of being hurt, that they could have left. There wasn't a hypothetical door. There was a real door. There wasn't a hypothetical car. It was theirs. It's parked outside. You'll hear the progression. And you'll hear that Hosanna Varela asked her to stop and leave. And you'll hear during the testimony of her that according to her previous statement, she had seen this object, the murder weapon, at Chris's house that was out, that it looked like a file of sorts. She describes it as something that would be like used to sharpen knives. There was a handle. She thought it had white tape, wasn't certain, but she saw it. And ultimately, she put it underneath. But she says there was no need to kill him. There was no need. And yet Stacey Rodriguez did. She'll describe what that sounded like. She'll talk about seeing Chris bleeding out. Describes a death gargle. She'll describe that immediately after, Stacey seems happy about it. And that instead of calling for 911 or anything like that, what was the first thing that Stacey Rodriguez started doing? She started going through his stuff. Opening cupboards, going into his room. So ladies and gentlemen, ultimately, you'll get the law as instructed in the end, and you will get to determine whether or not you believe it was reasonable. And was there a need for this imminent use of force to defend herself with no weapon, and that had to occur right then when a person was yelling to get out of my house? A reasonable belief, in order to have justified self-defense, you have to reasonably believe lesser force is just not going to cut it in this circumstance. You will get to determine those items as to what was reasonable, what was necessary, and what was appropriate. And there had to be this reasonable belief that there's imminent danger of being killed or receiving this injury. You'll hear the progression that the defendant asked her in this progression after the beer bottles, go get the weapon. You'll get to think about that. Deliberate, intentional action of asking for that. And Hosanna did. She'll detail all of that for you. What she heard, what she saw. And you'll hear, according to Hosanna, that then the defendant was moved. You'll hear that she was told to go out and start the car. The video will corroborate that. She discussed that items were taken. She will discuss driving off and then returning, staying in the car, and that the fire was lit. And ladies and gentlemen, they will blame her for all of this. Taking a deal with the devil. For witnessing this horrific murder. Receiving 32 years in the Department of Corrections. You'll get to decide who was the initial aggressor. Hearing that testimony, looking at the testimony, the actions after, the evidence of flight, and the defendant's multiple statements after the fact. And you'll get to compare what those statements look like between those two girls. And you had been told that they were arrested. And while at jail, you'll hear that Hosanna got a note written on paper towel. And I know it might be hard for you to see. You'll get this exhibit, but I'll read it to you. I hope you kept the same story. You ain't dumb. I know they're gonna trick you, but if you ain't see or do or hear anything, you're cool. You know, don't give in to they shit. Hang in there, babe. You'll be out soon. I just need to see how not to dig myself deeper. I know it's baby Joker's fault. It probably crossed your mind to say stuff, but then you going down too. Don't be stupid. Play dumb. It's all good, Turbo Muffler. LOL. You'll hear that in reference to this, I know it's baby Joker's fault, that that's what the defendant calls herself. When she's referring to her as babe, you'll get to hear about Stacy and Hosanna's relationship.
Oh,
You'll get
so
to
they
hear
were
that
special
Hosanna
friends.
previously been in a relationship with a man she had 3 children with. And that the fire just wasn't there anymore in that relationship. And that Hosanna and Stacy had worked together, and Stacy was showing her all of this attention that was missing from her husband at home. And at a certain point, that relationship became sexual. You'll hear on that video when they're arrested, do you know, how do you guys know each other? Yeah, we're definitely more than friends. Would you call yourself a couple? Yeah, yeah. And you'll hear the messages between them.
I'm sure Hosanna wishes for her boring marriage back. That's it. If a chick that you work with starts showing you a lot of attention, make sure she's not crazy. Well, he couldn't have said the spice. Look, he's almost done. We're letting him finish.
Hang in there, babe. You'll be out soon. I know it's baby Joker's fault. The same person that writes at the bottom of that letter, provided in jail to flush. That's what the evidence will be. And ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear that was not justifiable. That was not reasonable. That was not necessary. It was vicious. It was violent. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, you will know that Chris's death, his death in that living room, was only first-degree murder, followed by burglary, by stealing his stuff, followed by burglary for arson, and tampering with a deceased body. And I trust that after using all your reason, all your common sense, those will be the verdicts that you render. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's not what...
Good morning.
All right. So let's... Now, are they actually going to have... How is the video unavailable? All right. Oh, the defense is 11 minutes.
So I want to go back to October.
Oh.
So I want to go back to October 2nd and October 3rd. So we know that Miss Rodriguez, Stacy, is 19 years old. She's dating a woman who's married with kids, and they're going out having a normal night on October 2nd. They're going out to the bars where they meet Mr. Dickerson in an alleyway. And Mr. Dickerson approaches them and says,
If she's 19, why is she going to bars? I mean, there's a question I guess we'll never get answered.
Are you guys looking for an after party? I've got one. Great, no problem. That's normal. So that's what they're hoping they go to when they follow Mr. Dickerson to his home, is for an after party. And then it turns out nobody's there. There's no after party. It's just Mr. Dickerson and it's Stacy and Hosanna. That's it. So this man, mid-30s, okay, these ages, they're important here, right? Use your life experiences. We're all in different life stages right now, right? Guy in his mid-30s invites this young girl over for an after party.
She doesn't look like she's 18. I'm sorry, that woman looks like she's in her mid-20s or 30s. Yeah, sorry. She wasn't a, young little 13-year-old girl. He wasn't hanging out outside of middle schools. This is not the same thing. Also, then why is her, girlfriend taking her out on a school night if she's so young? Why aren't... But okay. I don't know. I do believe she is, because there was nothing in the article about her or Miss Rodriguez having retained, any sort of outside counsel.
And then you're going to hear what happened inside the home. And pay attention to all the things that the prosecution didn't tell you in opening. The prosecution said there was nothing physical in the house. No physical threats. Mr. Dickerson never did anything. Well, that's not true. Because Hosanna tells Detective Burrows the opposite. Hosanna tells Detective Burrows that she was uncomfortable around Mr. Dickerson in her home. That he was grabbing her butt multiple times, and she didn't really feel like she was showing him that she was interested. So Hosanna says she's uncomfortable around him. And then she says that actually, Chris, Mr. Dickerson, and Stacy were arguing at one point in the night, and he cornered her against a wall. Why didn't they tell you about that? Doesn't fit into the narrative. He corners her against the wall in the home, so much so that Hosanna says, leave her alone, get away from her. And Stacy has to push Mr. Dickerson off of her. There is physical contact in the home. And also think about what it looked like at that time. You're going to see photos of the house. You're going to be able to kind of get a layout of where the kitchen was to where the living room was, where Mr. Dickerson's body.
We could see a physical representation of the house if your client hadn't torched it. Dang it.
Was found. It's a ranch style home. It's small. No levels. You walk in, it's a living room, a kitchen is right.
Why is a young girl going into a rando guy's house after midnight? I mean, we can play this both ways. Did he know? Did he card these two before they came in? I don't know.
Next door. So think about all of that when you are drinking the entire night, 19 years old, and this man who said there was going to be an after party does not follow through. You are in a stranger's home by yourself, and he is cornering you, towering over you. And that's what Hosanna says. He is over her.
Okay, yes, he is over her, but we've seen pictures of this man. He is all of 150 pounds, and this woman is 400 pounds. Look, I'm sorry, but they're... Okay. Yes. I know. What was I thinking? I'm supposed to believe all women. I'm just having a hard time believing this one. And then her lawyer trying to make me believe that I'm this dumb as well.
Members multiple times saying he is over her. And he's taller than Stacy. By a lot.
And she outweighs him by a lot. I mean, these are truths, but you probably don't want to bring that up.
The prosecution had brought up the drinking and what Mr. Dickerson's, blood alcohol content was. And you're going to hear about the talk screen that was run by Detective Burson. And you're going to learn all about this when we discuss the autopsy. But keep in mind that Mr. Dickerson's blood alcohol content that night was 0.3. It's about 4 times over the legal limit. And again, he's at his house with his alcohol, asking for an after party. Miss Rodriguez wasn't trying to poison him or get him so drunk he didn't know what was going on. He's in his mid-30s and invited them over for an after party. That's what's going on. Use your common sense.
Well, if he's drinking vodka and they're drinking water, if they felt that danger or in danger in that house, there's this. Okay. I guess they had been at the bars and he's like, oh, I'm going to go drink. But he went to his home. Yeah, this sounds like it was, oh, do you want to party? Or I have some liquor at home. And they were like, fine, let's go get liquor. And now that she is in trouble, this weird, scary man invited me like for free puppies. And then he was like, I have booze.
Saw some autopsy photos and we talked about that metal file. And the prosecution said that Hosanna's version of events is that after, well, I guess the prosecution didn't tell you that in opening, but after she pushes Mr. Dickerson away, that somehow they end up in the living room, right? And Hosanna says that Stacy says, give me that weapon, give me that file. You'll hear the proffer, you'll hear how it actually goes. But then consider the file. Think about that. When you saw those photos, the sharp end is sticking out. And Hosanna describes the file as looked like it had white tape on the, the handle, the base of it. And you'll be able to see the file, and you'll be able to see the blunt part.
No, that was
is in
my
Mr.
chair.
Dickerson's neck is textured. It looks like it's wrapped. You will get to see the file, and you will get to look for yourself. Does it look like anything is broken off? Does it look like something is rough? Or does it look like it is a metal file that has a sharp end sticking out? So if somebody is reacting, trying to save themselves, think about the way that a weapon would have been used. The sharp end is not in, it's out. Think about it might be dangerous for yourself if you have something sharp in your hand and the sharp end is sticking out and you're defending yourself and you're using the blunt end in. That almost puts you at risk as well. It's not smart, it's not premeditated, it's not with after deliberation, it's not thought out, because she easily could have hurt herself as well. Why wouldn't you use a sharp end? It doesn't make sense. It's a panic decision to protect yourself, to save yourself. And when you look at the house and you look at the photos, you will see that there is a door to the living room. But we talked about that in jury selection. You all agreed there is no duty to retreat. But I do encourage you to look at the layout of the home and consider that if somebody is reacting in a panic and what that would look like and not feeling safe and the close quarters that you are in.
You can see how small the house is before you even enter. If you are getting any sort of like, this doesn't seem kosher, this looks like a small, thing. And yeah, my husband has a bunch of files. You always have a wooden thing over it. How small, therefore self-defense. If he'd been in a McMansion, it would have been, just regular red rum.
Now, we know that the house was burned, right? You saw the body worn in the prosecution's opening of the house, up in flames when GPD officers arrive. And that's a scene that probably nobody wishes to come upon. It is going to invoke emotions. It is sad. There is no way, I think, that you can look at this case and not find that there is an emotional component, because there just is. Somebody died, and two people are going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. That's horrible. But you have to sometimes put that emotion aside and go back to the logic, and go back to the elements that the prosecution has to prove, and go back to what we talked about in jury selection, about those drastic measures. Think about how realistic it is that somebody panics and does something because they don't know what else is going on. And that's what happened. Horrible decisions are made, but it doesn't mean that something wasn't justified. Don't confuse The self-defense in a stranger's home, older than you, taller than you, being aggressive, being touchy, drinking, feeling like
Okay, I'm calling X to doubt that anyone grabbed her ass. Does that make me a terrible person? But I'm saying between Hosanna, who looks semi-attractive, and Stacy, sure, maybe some women like bigger, or some men like bigger women, so I'm not discounting that. But I'm gonna say things that never happened for 800, Alex.
you can't get away. All of those things can still be true. So you're going to think about, when you hear about self-defense, when you think about what the legal standards are, reasonableness, right? The objective idea. But it's reasonable in the situation itself, in the context that you're presented with.
True. Also, he was drunk.
Prosecution talked about guilt and regret. And of course, there's guilt and regret. Of course. Somebody's life was taken. That's horrible. We talked about this a lot in jury selection. We're all agree murder is wrong.
Well, I'm glad we all agreed about that. I mean, it'd have been really shitty to start off the trial with some of us thinking it was okay. Jesus.
Justified in self-defense. But that doesn't mean that it takes away regret. Doesn't mean it takes away guilt. Because that's a trauma that somebody has to live with for the rest of their lives. And so, again, I want to go back to this distortion, because you saw a portion of those Facebook messages, but that's not the entire story. And you'll get to hear more of the entire story throughout this trial. Okay, openings are just a snapshot of what the next week is going to entail. Okay, but when you think about the guilt and the regret, I want you to go back to actually what the statements say. It's not
To
just that.
whatever actually the statements
I
actually
didn't talk to
say.
anybody. I should have told people. It's every time I close my eyes, I see him. Hardest part of my life. I don't want to keep going. I feel alone. Those are human reactions, human responses to something horrible that just happened. To
Yes,
something
she
horrible that
murdered
probably
someone.
Nobody ever in their mind imagines that they would have to do to somebody else. Nobody asked for this. Nobody wants this. Definitely not Miss Rodriguez. So no, she has to live with that. And we talked in jury selection about, what if you don't call the police, right? Does that take away the justification? No.
No, but it's harder
Because
to sell.
You all had said, what if people don't believe you? That's also scary. So think about that. You don't think someone's going to believe you? You're just trying to live your life. There's no situation where somebody would act in self-defense and killing somebody else and then be happy about it. That is not a human reaction. That is not a human response.
Did you ask that town that in self-defense took care of that one a-hole? I mean, I'm just saying. My client's really sorry is not a defense. I don't know who needs to tell you about.
The guilt, the remorse, the panic, that's a human response. Ms. Rodriguez was 19 years old at a stranger's house under...
And we had kids going over in U-boats who were, 19, 18, and some of them lied. They were 16 damn years old. I am so tired of this. She was 19. She was 19. I don't know how she was supposed to not know to not stabulate someone. How? Okay.
a situation she didn't think. Thought there was going to be more people. Thought it was going to be a party. And it went differently. It turned differently. He did corner her. She had to push him away, and it didn't stop. So Think about all of that. That is what this case is about. It is about panic decisions, decisions made under pressure, relying on distorted facts that don't make sense to fit a narrative because you need that narrative. They need that narrative. But it doesn't go.
You guys, hey, remember that whole altered narrative? And you guys need to remember her feelings. And she was a grieving mom. That worked out so well for Megan Boswell. I'm sure it'll work out great for her. I mean, right?
Go with logic and it doesn't go with reason. Ms. Rodriguez, Stacy defended herself. She defended the woman that she loved to try to keep them safe. And that's what she did.
No, if he was attacking you, then you don't know that he was going to attack your girlfriend. I mean, you had probably likely thoughts that he would, but welcome, Baker Raiders. We are just finishing up opening statements in the red rum, well, arson self-defense. And hoping
a first-degree murder.
All right, hoping that Law and Crime has day one, because we tried to watch day one and it was, let's see if it still has it as private video. What is going, how can it be private? It's Law and Crime. All right. It looks like this one's, all right, so we sat through the most boring state's opening ever. And there we are. They must have, okay. Well, looks like everyone is going to, so that is day one. Now, maybe day two that we're playing live has something. Oh, we're waiting for them to start. Okie dokie. So Stacy Rodriguez is accused of killing Christopher Dickerson in Colorado in October 2021. Now, according to police, Dickerson was found stabbed inside his home, which was also set on fire. Police arrested both Rodriguez and another woman, Hosanna Varela, in connection to the Dickerson killing. Now, Hosanna pled guilty to arson, tampering with a deceased human body, and accessory to a crime, and then is also expected to testify against Rodriguez. And thank you, Broken Baker.
Mr. Aurelia, did you need to address 205?
Oh, wait. No, you don't do that. I do this. We were on the wrong side of the Great Valley.
From the state, anything from the defense?
No, thank you.
And then with regard to scheduling, I think we had talked about this previously, but I can't remember when this was said. I have a continuation on a different homicide trial, and we had to set the continuation on that preliminary hearing for 4 p.m.
My hair is probably, I've been,
I guess there is one issue in looking at these photos from the defense. I don't know if the court wants to take that up now. Or
what in the name of Hades? This suit. Wow. That is a suit and a half, state's attorney.
If we can address it now, we might as well address it now.
clear from the pictures that they're attempting to bring in photographs of marijuana pipes or pipes of the sort that would have been in Mr. Dickerson's house at the time of the fire. In looking at these photos in comparison with the toxicology reports, I don't believe there's any allegation that marijuana was in his system.
And I don't know what photos you're referring to. Can you, sure. And from the defense, any response to that?
I'm trying to turn it up. I've got it boosted on both of my sound grabbers.
Your Honor, this isn't necessarily going to the toxicology. I would note the toxicology only comes back positive for a handful of substances. THC was not tested on that panel, but this is going to the defense of the investigation of what was found inside the home.
And Mr. Hill, can you elaborate that? You said it goes to the defense on
All right, well, let me see if, because they're outside the presence of the jury, let's see if we've increased the.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. Detective, will you remain standing? Since we're beginning a new day, I'm going to swear you in again. Sir, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir. Go ahead and have a seat. And Detective, if you can get as close to the microphone as is reasonable. And Mr. Praley, you may resume.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, I'm going to reapproach with People's Exhibit 3.
Use the mics, you.
Thank you.
I had provided you the tag number yesterday on that disc. Was that associated with this case?
Yes, it is.
And specifically connected with your duties?
Yes, it is.
Have you now had the ability to view the contents of People's Exhibit 3?
I did.
Is it fair and accurate?
Yes, it is.
Does it contain the footage that you dealt with in this investigation?
Yes, it does.
Specifically as it pertains to the video dealing with 2406 15th Avenue Court?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, move for omission at 3.
Any objection?
Confrontation.
All right, the court will overrule the objection and admit it to evidence states 3. And you may publish where appropriate.
Law and Crime is the only one covering this, and I looked yesterday to see if anyone else was covering this, or I looked this morning, but because they did fine with the openings, so I'm hoping that their being on the podium is going to work better, but we will see.
Describe to the jury what your other roles in the investigation were.
In this investigation, I was mainly the on-scene evidence processing. There's multiple search warrants, so I would be 3 days straight going to the scene and doing collection of evidence such as photos or individual items, and then bringing those back and booking those as evidence.
And can you describe, is there a specific process or procedure that you go through from the time that you start that and then how you ultimately clear the scene and finish?
Yep, so once you get the signed search warrant, the very first thing when you're on scene is you start taking overall photographs. So it'd be on the exterior, in this case, the home. Taking every photograph on there, then you're moving inside, in this case, throughout the house, taking all those photos before you touch or move anything or collect any physical items. So you're just trying to identify what's.
Did I ever tell you about the time Baker showed up at my daughter's wedding? Well, he shows up and you know he's a big fella. Well, he's standing right between my daughter, or me and my daughter at the ceremony. Yes, I will turn myself down. No, stop. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something else. Not that. I'm a professional. This is better. Way professional.
Important to the investigation, and that's all done in the timeline
Oh.
of the search warrant. in this case was over 3 days, so October 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Brandon. I missed both of those as I was trying to work on the audio. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but outside my house, we are getting gale force winds. I'm actually surprised my internet's still going. He's got no right to be there, but he's drunk. Well, long story short, the priest accidentally marries me and Browski. We spend the weekend in the Poconos. He loved me like I've never been loved before. Well, all's well that ends well. I'm glad that you all fell in love, and you will always have the Poconos.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, if you could take a look at 144. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And can you describe what that is?
So the scene of this investigation was at 2413 15th Avenue Court. This is a picture of an overhead diagram of that residence.
Is this diagram fair and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time I move for the admission of 144.
Any objection to 144?
No objection.
All right, the court will admit into evidence 144, and you may publish where appropriate.
Sir, as you go through the process, you noted that you're taking photographs and then collecting evidence. Did you specifically take these photographs in this case?
Yes, I did.
If I could approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 7 through 51.
7 through 51, go ahead.
Sir, if you can take a moment to look at People's Exhibits 7 through 51. Ready?
Yeah,
Are we doing
Recognize
all
all
of
of
them?
them?
I do.
Were they pictures you took?
Yes, they are.
Are they fair and accurate?
They are.
Move for the admission of 7 through 51.
Any objection to states 7 through 51?
Yes. Could I please see 14 through 17, and then could we approach?
Sure.
This has been rousing thus far. Doogie hipster glasses is kind of confusing me. Brandon Lesko, from your mouth to God's ears. We need to get Doge team on courts with $1,000 mics and video feeds, probably in the House IT people, because none of it works. I don't know if this is a meeting the Sixth Amendment obligations. You're right. This is Colorado. Okay, now they just don't have sound going whatsoever.
And Cobb.
And so when you're taking pictures, is that at his direction?
Some of them would be, yes,
Okay. Specific to his opinion regarding the fire?
correct.
Okay. I want to start with just the basic overviews, but is it fair to say there would be certain things in these pictures that would be better explained by Lieutenant Cobb?
Yes.
Okay. If we could just start with 7. And sir, it'll be up to your right, if that's easier, or you have the printed version obviously in front of you.
Turn here.
Can you describe what we're looking at here, sir?
This is standing in the cul-de-sac in front of the scene, so it's just a photograph of basically the overall view from the street.
Okay. If we could show 9.
This is now standing in the driveway. This was the single garage.
Okay. 13.
This is standing on the front porch of the main entry to the home, and you're getting,
Yes. Guilty on all charges. I will have to look up when his sentencing is. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with the audio. They obviously didn't have Recovery Attic on their, sound feed.
slight view of the south side of the living room.
And so just to help us orient ourselves as we're looking at the diagram on 144, can you generally describe where we would be looking at in People's Exhibit 13 on 144?
So, may I?
Yes. Just make sure to speak loudly.
I'm standing right here in the doorway, so the view is looking out this. You can see this window here in the background.
And for the record, you have motioned on the,
So hopefully I've been turned down more so that you can turn it up and I shouldn't be blowing out your speakers. In theory, hopefully.
right side of the exhibit near 15th Avenue Court and then in a downward direction. Is that fair?
Correct. So this would be the southeast corner of the home.
Thank you. Now, sir, you noted that this was a multi-day process.
Yes.
Based on this photo, can you describe when it would have been in the process?
October 3rd.
Okay, and how do you know that?
This was day 1. We had not even begun to actually physically search the home. This was simply to document the state we found it in.
All right, and if you can, just progress us through a little bit how you take it from these initial photos and how you progress through actually sifting or searching and the layers that you would have to do in a scene such as this.
So arson scenes are really unusual because, as you can tell, the amount of fire debris, especially from the ceiling, comes down and covers everything that you would never have in a typical crime scene. So in an arson, after you take your initial photos such as this, you then have to take each layer down and you're going through that rubble looking for then any items of evidence to the floor, and then from there you almost have to rebuild what that scene would look like. And again,
Thank you,
relying
Brandon.
on a, certified arson.
Welcome to the Church of Mo. We have dark chocolate, sarcasm, and maladaptive coping mechanisms, but we're good people otherwise. Also, we curse like sailors, but we're good people otherwise.
Inspector like Lieutenant Cobb. So we put back items of furniture that we can, so you see like the yellow, like a couch and things like that. So you kind of rebuild and reconstruct, and then you're taking more photos throughout that process as well. They also almost have to be done during daylight hours.
Thank you, Share Bear, for the $2 for the curse jar. We might need it because this looks like it's going to be a crazy case.
Which is another reason we hold the scene, because everything is charred, and so lighting is very difficult.
Thank you for that explanation. We could show 14. Can you describe what we're looking at there, sir?
That was the front door.
Oh, you might have. Let me.
15?
Another view of the front door.
And what was noteworthy for you in People's Exhibit 15?
You can see some of the burn, the smoke damage, and that obviously it was it sustained high levels of heat is the description, just how deformed it was. Obviously fire had to move the door when they arrived on scene.
Okay. And 16?
That's the garage door.
17?
That would be the front large picture window. As you can see, inside you're facing, you'd be looking east, so this is standing just outside, looking west into the living room.
Okay. So, sir, just to be clear, you had pointed to People's Exhibit 144. I appreciate that. And you had directed it near that front window. Would that be by the yellow object that you had previously motioned was the couch?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And fair to say that the glass was all broken out?
Yes, most of the windows, the heat burst the glass from inside.
Okay, and so was there a lot of glass as you went layer by layer on the floor?
What in the sanatorium artwork is this? But thank you, Let's Go Brandon. Yes, look at this photograph. Every time you do, you'll see arson. I don't know, we'll have to get Nickelback back together. Are they still a band? I don't know. If anyone could tell us the whereabouts of Chad Kroger. We need a read. So, I am not sure I have favorites. What is up with the soft-spoken cop? Because we have had, we had to switch to day 2 because day 1, all of Law and Crime's court coverage has been privated. So I don't know what happened on day 1. So we're kind of coming in on day 2. And sorry, Chair Bear, they misspelled curse word. How dare they? They really are buttholes, I swear. Thank you so much.
Yes, there was glass throughout all the debris.
Um, 18? Can you direct us where Exhibit 18 would be?
So you're standing just inside the garage door opening. You can see the end of his car here, and then to your left is a garage entrance that went into the kitchen.
Okay. $19, briefly?
That was the vehicle parked inside the garage.
So we've turned, I guess.
Yeah, you're standing at the back of the garage, which would lead into the backyard, looking back towards the main garage door.
20?
So this is stepping just inside the front door, and now you have a more view of the living room in its entirety.
All right, so sir, going back to 144, sorry to keep doing this. If we were looking at that front door on 144 and the exhibit that was just published, we would be turned towards the left in the living room?
Correct.
Okay. 21? Where are we looking at here, sir?
Pretty similar view. This is a little further in, but again, if you walked into the home and looked to your left, you're looking to the back corner here of the living room. You can obviously see all the drywall, everything, and the ceiling insulation is what you're seeing on the floor there with remnants of furniture.
22?
When you walk in the front door and you're looking straight ahead, there was an entrance to the hallway, which would then lead to the bathroom and the bedrooms.
23 briefly.
Standing in the living room looking out through the main window, the large window.
I'm going to skip ahead to 27.
This is from the living room, walking into the kitchen.
Right?
So you can see that door there is the one that led into the garage. So if you walked in and took a right in the home, right into the kitchen, that's the view you're looking at here.
Moving to 30.
So now standing in the kitchen, you're looking back towards that front door in the living room, which you can now see through the wall. See kind of the entirety of the living room from the kitchen view.
31.
So just off the left, that's the living room. So this is the doorway into the hallway. From that position, you could turn your first bedroom on your left, which is again, the southwest bedroom. This is a view looking through that door, bedroom door.
32.
So now stepping into that bedroom, you can see as you walk in, it's more to the right. That's where the bed and then the closet would be on your right.
And to be clear on People's Exhibit 144, when we're looking at 32 here, it would be the southwest bedroom?
Correct. This bedroom right here.
Thank you. 33.
This is just a overall picture of the bed in this bedroom.
34.
This again shows the other side of the bedroom where the closet was and the window, and again, the bed.
Sir, in nearly the middle of this photograph, did you notice something on the bed, specifically a box?
Yes, this room had items laid out on the bed. The small box there is a small jewelry box typically used to hold a ring.
Okay. And did you take additional photographs that have now been admitted of that?
Yes, I did.
36, would this be the closet?
Yes, that's this bedroom's closet.
I will say, Paul Amos, I am noticing paneling. This does look like an older sort of ranch style house. So, especially with the built-ins sort of in there. So, because I noticed built-in cabinetry in the closet. So I do wonder if this was an older home, and I don't know how good paneling was, but I will tell you that the paneling in our 70s home was quite a bit flammable. Not that we burned any of it instead of taking it to the dump. So I don't know how I know that.
And is that how you had found it?
Yes.
Okay. So to be fair, it wasn't like there were clothes hangers or anything up at the time you got there. You take them off, put them on the bed.
No, nothing had been moved.
Okay. 37.
That's a view of the bed and then the items that had been laid out on the bed.
And again, not laid out by you.
Not by me.
To your knowledge, by anyone else?
I do not know.
Okay. Going back to this layered approach and going to the living room, if we could show 40 briefly. Sir, what are we looking at there?
This is the living room floor.
Okay. And 41.
This is again the living room floor. Obviously talking with fire personnel when they had to crawl through a burning building and that and discovered the body. We were able to orient to the best of our knowledge where they pulled the body from the home, which was in the living room. So we established kind of a preliminary placement for that. So that says head, if you can't read it from there, and feet would be the one at the top. So this is that, what we would believe is the couch and the picture window on the left side of the screen there.
Okay. 42, briefly. What are we looking at there, sir?
So again, as you start to move down in the debris, this was clothing, which was then saturated in body matter and blood.
43.
Another view of the same.
44.
So this is where you can see a lot of the debris after being sifted through and removed from the home. This area, a lot more careful on the layout, but it gave a better picture. You can see an outline of clothing, some of it with the red color there, obviously the blood-soaked clothing. And the frame of the couch is at the top here.
45.
So this is where we start to try to put furniture back in, get a better picture of what this laid out before the fire. So you can see the picture window, the couch, and then again, I guess closest to me on the screen is the head, and then going out towards the feet.
As would be depicted on 144, the diagram.
Correct.
46.
Once that evidence was collected, this was a picture to show basically the only clean area on that flooring, which is preserved by the body.
Okay. Did it appear that there was a lot of blood on the floor based on what you could see in the clothing?
Objection, expert opinion.
All right,
Expert opinion.
the court will overrule the objection.
You can answer, sir.
Yes, all the clothing was blood soaked, and that's what basically preserves this is the liquid.
Going back just briefly to what was found on the bed, 47.
That's the picture of the ring box, and then I believe that's a wallet.
Interesting.
49.
It's a close-up of the ring box, and that's an SD card for a camera, the storage.
The outside of that box, 48.
And then obviously a Zales company ring box, just closed now.
Are you familiar with that company?
I am.
What general business is it?
It's a jewelry store.
Hearsay.
All right, I'll overrule the objection.
It's a jewelry store.
50. Why'd you take that photo, sir?
This was interesting because once you remove all the items, it just showed very much an imprint that these items were there before the fire started. That way there's no smoke damage where we removed items from.
And a different view of that in 51.
So another view there, you can see where items had been lying before the fire started.
The Sir, I also want to approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 145 and 146. .145 being the photo, do you recognize that photo?
I do.
Is that a fair and accurate photograph?
It is.
What does it generally depict?
The backyard, there was a trash bin. This is a picture if you open the lid and took a picture of inside the trash bin.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for admission of 145.
Any objection to 145?
No.
All right, the court will admit into evidence 145. You may publish where appropriate.
As to 146, is that a physical item that was observed in 145?
Yes, it is.
Did you assist in that search warrant portion and collecting that and then entering it into evidence?
I did.
Do you recognize it from this investigation?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, at this time, move for admission of 146.
Any objection to 146?
No.
All right, the court will admit into evidence 146.
Sir, as it pertains to the glass and the general areas that you had talked about, when you're going through that layer by layer approach and there's that glass on the floor, would you have been able to differentiate with all the debris a difference of a window versus any kind of other glass?
I personally would not be able to, no.
And you didn't, I guess.
No.
Those are my questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Any cross-examination? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Will we have one moment, Your Honor, to set up?
I'm sorry.
We just have one moment to set up, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
No, not set up. We're waiting here for them to figure out technology. They're lawyers, so it's going to be a couple years.
Morning, Detective Blair.
Good morning.
Okay. I'm going to refer, I think, to People's 144 a little bit, so we can kind of keep that in mind. I want to start off when you first got to the house. So if we're looking at, I guess, the front door, so that's coming from the 15th Avenue Court area, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you said, and we can kind of see the stick figure on there, when you first get into the house, you believe that the body was found laying face up about 10 feet inside that door, correct?
Yes, I don't recall if it was face up or face down in my reports. I can look through them if you need.
Sure. Would that refresh your recollection? I have your report.
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to approach?
Yes, go ahead.
Take your hand out of your pocket. So there was basically he was stabbed in the neck with a metal file 5 times, and the file was left in his neck. So when they found the body, because basically the police were called to a burning house, they pull this body out and realize, despite the, level of burn, that there was a thing sticking out of their neck. So it obviously wasn't, a natural cause. The argument here is that the woman in the black is claiming self-defense. She stabbed him with a nail or a file in self-defense, and then they, decided to burn everything down to hide that crime. So it will be interesting what the defense puts up there, because it does kind of look like they basically went to this man's house and robbed him, unalived him, robbed him, and then committed arson, versus this was a terrible, scary thing that happened. Well, her partner in crime got 32 years in prison for first-degree arson, tampering with evidence, accessory to murder. And she will actually be testifying against Stacey Rodriguez. So Hosanna Varela, 26, will testify against Stacey Rodriguez. Now, these two women were in a relationship with each other, so who knows? And welcome, Wilburn Raiders. Welcome.
That the body was face up. Refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, so you believe that the body was face up?
Yes, that was a plea deal.
And we're
Sorry.
speaking about Mr. Dickerson, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when we were looking, I suppose, maybe kind of help explain, you determined that the couch was up against the window. Is that correct if I'm looking at that diagram?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And was this based on the springs that were found when you were looking in the living room?
Correct.
Okay. And the springs would have been assuming from the couch, correct?
Correct.
But just to be clear, this is a best estimate based on you and perhaps even Lieutenant Cobb, given you weren't aware of how the actual house was laid out prior to the fire, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if we're looking at 10 feet in, so just purposes maybe to orient the jury, when we're looking at the stick figure, 10 feet into the left, and then immediately when you walk in that front door, you go directly into the kitchen, correct? To the right, I suppose.
Yes, to the right's the kitchen, so then to your left would be the body diagram.
Okay. And then I think it's clear from the diagram, but just out of an abundance of caution, there is no door specifically separating the living room from the kitchen. It's just a doorway, correct?
An opening, yeah.
Okay, an open, sure. And then when you go into the kitchen, you were able to see, I suppose, the sink on one side. You had kind of the oven on one side, and then toward the sink, which I guess would have been on the 15th Avenue court side, there was also then like a cabinet, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And then to get to the
let's
garage,
see.
the only way...
Deviants more, we have started a new trial. So this is going to be the trial of Colorado versus Stacey Rodriguez. Now, Miss Rodriguez claims that she killed Chris Dickerson in self-defense. Did a little light robbery and then arsoned his house, but the murder was totally in self-defense. The state claims that, no, you guys murdered and robbed. There was no justification to stab this man 5 times with a metal file and burn his house. So we're trying to figure out whether or not this is self-defense. Now, Miss Rodriguez also has to deal with the fact that her alleged co-conspirator or accessory after the fact will be testifying against her because of a plea deal where she might get a certain amount of time off of her, sentence, which is about 32 years for arson, accessory after the fact, and robbery. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see whether the jury believes, Stacey, if she does testify, or if Hosanna's, testimony about what happened is more realistic. because the defense is definitely going with Stacy at the time of the crime was a 19-year-old girl who went back for an after party at a grown man's home, discounting that Miss Stacy was already out at bars, you know, being 19 with her 26-year-old girlfriend at the time. So again, maybe not as squeaky clean and innocent, but we will get to the bottom of this.
To get to the garage from the inside the house was through the kitchen, right?
From inside, yes.
Okay. And then the only way to get to the covered patio, you could get outside through the garage, right, to the backyard?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then to get to the covered patio, would you have to go through the bedroom closest to the garage or the bathroom, or how would that work?
I don't recall a separate entrance besides the garage entrance to the backyard.
Okay. So that covered patio area, then the only way to get out there would have been through the garage.
Yeah, well, so Chris and them had met in an alley, as you do at the end of the night, and he invited them to his house for an after party. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but don't invite strange people home or strange people from alleys into your house. It's going to end bad, okay? And I just realized, I hope I didn't blow out you guys' eardrums. I'm sorry for that. I forgot with the audio that that's probably just super loud. An after alley party. As you do. Just don't go to those after alley parties.
Or the fence, I guess, yes.
Yeah, okay, so either outside completely, or if you were inside the house, you would go through the garage to get out into
That's
the
right.
back. Okay, fair enough. And then the bedroom that we see, I suppose, like the bottom of that diagram was presumed to be Mr. Dickerson's, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then the bedroom closest to
Possibly.
the garage was presumed to be his roommate's,
Yes,
and then a shared bath.
correct.
Okay. And then, obviously, I think this is clear, out of abundance of caution, this is a ranch-style home. There was no basement,
That's correct.
no upper level.
No.
I want to go in when you search the bedroom, Mr. Dickerson's bedroom. Okay. You noted in your report that you actually just reviewed, or sorry, I apologize, maybe not that report. But in your reports when you were doing the search warrant of the home, that you had found multiple bags on top of the bed, correct?
Yes,
And in those bags, in some of the bags were numerous glass pipes, right?
that's correct.
They didn't take his bong collection? How terrible of them. I don't know what those get in the resale market. Thank you, Lesko.
All right, I want to show
Lady
you
of the
what's marked
alley.
as Defendants Exhibits I, J, K. Your Honor, permission to approach, previously been shown to the prosecution.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, yes, wife co-conspirator, also, if you can believe it, the wife co-conspirator, Hosanna, she was bored in her marriage. So she was getting all this attention from Stacy Rodriguez. I mean, and then she ends up with all the attention she could ever want with her fellow inmates. I bet she wants that boring marriage back now.
Detective Blair, have you had a chance to look at those?
I did.
Okay. Do these look like photos that you had taken when you were looking in Mr. Dickerson's room on October 3rd and 4th?
Yes,
Okay. Do these look fair and accurate to what you had seen?
yes,
Can you, do these contain photos of marijuana pipes?
yes,
As well as, like maybe like holders, silicone holders?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, we would move to admit I, J, and K and publish.
And from the state, any further objection?
No.
All right. Noting the state's previous objection, I will overrule and admit into evidence states I, J, and K. Or I'm sorry, defense I, J, and K. And you may publish at your discretion.
So Director Blair, here we're looking at defense I, right?
Yes.
Let's Go Brandon for $5 says, I can type the phrase, fry your banana. Well, I'm glad. Thank you.
So here, this is what we believe to, or what you believe to be Mr. Dickerson's bed.
I do.
Okay. And then we can see at least 3 marijuana pipes in the very front center. So we've got a black one, a rainbow one, and
Yes.
a blue and green one. Okay, and then if we're looking up to the top right of that photo, it looks like there's another one in
What?
the case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then when we're looking at this photo itself, kind of thinking of what you talked about with Mr. Perelia, you believe that items were on the bed prior to the fire starting based on there being no smoke sometimes on whatever that maybe like mattress cover is, right?
Yes.
Okay, when we're looking at this photo, it looks like you had moved some of the things to take the photo, right? Fair to
That's
say?
correct.
Okay, all right. If we could move on to J, please. Okay, and then look behind you, another photo, defense J. Looks like there's another case and then a black pipe, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then if we could go to K, please. And then here we're same bed, right?
Correct.
And then it looks like if we're looking at this to just kind of orient the jury, the previous 2 photos were on, I suppose.
Look, those are just decorative door knockers. I don't know what these people are getting all upset about. Those are just Christmas ornaments at Cheech and Chong's house.
The farther left side of the bed if we're looking at the bed this way, right?
I believe so. These ones are a little harder to orient.
Okay. But if we're looking at the down part of the bed here, we've got, if we're looking at kind of maybe the middle left, it looks like there's like a silicone holder that's black and white.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have a pipe in a case, correct?
Yes.
Right down below, and then to the right of that, we have 2 pipes that are loose.
Yes.
Okay, and then to the far right, we have another silicone container.
Correct.
Okay. And Detective Blair, you've, how long have you been with GPD?
About 8 years.
We've done a lot of.
Let's Go Brandon for $5. The relevance is this guy was just looking for some old licky and to have girls friends. I could see how that could possibly get you unread. I don't know why. Those Danish. Could we get to a point? I have to leave here in like 15 minutes, and all we know is that this man likes his devil's lettuce and apparently sculptures. Look, he's just trying to keep the decorative glass industry in, fiscally solvent. I don't see what this guy's problem was. Yeah, not to mention, this is in Colorado where things have been legal there, and Indiana still means everything's illegal. Yeah, Indiana decided to vote down legal weed. I know you're shocked. I'm not shocked. We're Indiana.
The DUI investigations. Or a handful, perhaps?
Handful,
It's
yes.
been a minute.
It has.
Okay. But you've done drug investigations?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're looking for certain things, when you saw these silicone containers, to you, in your opinion, based on your training and experience, these look like these might have been holding like marijuana hash oil or wax at one point, or could have been, right?
Commonly used for that, yes.
Okay. And then within these, and we see that blue bag right on the bed too, in that blue bag is where you found a lot of the marijuana pipes, right?
I believe so.
Okay. And then right below,
Please tell me the blue bag had "not my stash," totally not my stash, written on there.
And I suppose there was another bag as well, like a black bag that had marijuana pipes as well. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you also found marijuana pipes when you first walked in. Kind of there was like a drawer or a desk by the couch in the living room, and you found some more marijuana pipes in there, right?
I believe there was some in the living room. I don't remember right now exactly where, but yes, we did.
So instead of the drunk drawer, you have the life's going to drunk. Let's get high drawer. I mean, you know.
Find additional glass pipes.
Okay, in the living room.
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to show you what's been previously marked as defense exhibits Q and R. Permission to approach.
Yes, go ahead.
So there are also photos that you took in the execution of the search warrant here.
Yes.
Okay. And then these photos are a little bit different. These photos are kind of after had been placed into evidence, right? With the Greeley Police Department?
Correct.
Okay. But still fair and accurate to what you had seen in Mr. Dickerson's home, right?
It is.
Okay. Your Honor, we would move to admit and publish, please.
Any objection to Q and R? No. All right, the court will admit into evidence defense Q and R, and you may publish when appropriate.
So looking at defense exhibit Q, this is the label here says item 41, correct?
Oh my gosh, that's an awesome drawer.
Like on the bag itself.
It says
47.
47.
I apologize.
Okay.
47.
47.
Okay. And so just so that the jury understands, this is kind of the label that you would do after you collect things from a scene, you put it into evidence, give it a specific label, so we all know exactly what it is later.
Yes.
Okay. And so this item 47 says drug paraphernalia, and does that then match then defense exhibit R of what would have been in that bag?
I believe so.
We could go to defense exhibit R, please. And so now these are just what we just looked at on the bed, maybe just easier to see the different pipes, the different cases, and the silicone containers, correct?
Yes.
And then on the far
Okay.
right, there looks like there might.
I'm confused, but I get what the sculptural objects are for, but what is this little boxy guy? Lip glosses? I don't know. Tells you I was a very, very nerdy high school student, because I'm like, okay, I understand what some of this stuff is, but a lot of this is confusing to me.
Might be like a metal, I guess like file, not necessarily file, but a metal piece. Do you see what I'm talking about?
I don't know exactly what it is.
Okay. In your experience, could this
Oh.
be used for individuals that might be using a butane torch for marijuana wax or hash oil?
I don't know exactly what that is.
Okay, that's okay. I
And
appreciate that.
to be fair, this was Officer Desandre that did this particular evidence. So
Right, but it is what we were looking at on the bed that you had photographed, correct?
some of it is, yes,
Yes, okay. Thank you.
but not that.
Not that metal piece. Okay. And you said Officer Desandre, he was also with you looking at the home, correct?
He was a major crime scene tech, so he was brought in.
Right. My question is, you all had both looked at the home together, correct?
Yes, we were there
Okay.
processing together.
Okay, thank you. All right, I want to move on now and show you what's been labeled as Defense Exhibit D. Your Honor, permission to approach?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Detective Blair, does it look like, is this a photo that you also took in the execution of the search warrant of Mr. Dickerson's home?
Yes.
Okay, and does this look fair and accurate to what you saw in the kitchen?
I'm jealous.
Your Honor, permission to admit and publish Defense Exhibit D.
Any objection to D? No. The court will accept into evidence defense D, and you may publish at your discretion.
I want to look at this, and we can zoom in if it's helpful. Looks like there are about 2 longer knives on the top end of this counter, right? more like kitchen knives.
Okay.
I see the one here.
And then like a butter knife next to it, perhaps.
Okay, that's a butter knife, not two long kitchen knives.
And you took a photo of that knife, right?
Yes.
Obviously. But you didn't collect this or put it into evidence, right?
No.
Okay. You never took any type of like swabs of this knife, right?
No.
And when we're thinking of swabs, different types of swabs that you might do, but generally when you're swabbing something, you're kind of taking maybe some material that might be on it to test later, right?
Correct.
And this
Okay, how are you going to be able to swab a knife that's not only been through fire mitigation, but had ash all over it? I mean, I'm not a defense attorney. I don't do this for like a living, but it would seem quite self-evident that they wouldn't swab a random knife, you know, that's in the kitchen when they realize that the nail file is sticking out of his neck. Not to mention, again, it's covered in ash. What are you going to get from that? It's all going to be contaminated. All right, you guys, I do have to go get my young to most feral children. I will probably try to do another long run of this on Sunday so that we're caught up for Monday. And we have everything ready so we can go into this, and hopefully we will have good audio, because that's what we always hope for. But I will see you guys tomorrow on Stabby Day, if Baker has it, but also on Legal Shenanigans Theater, we are doing Diet Coke Recollections. The continuation of the Theodore Edgecombe not remembering stuff montage. So if you need somewhere to laugh, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Standard Time, because we aren't doing that god-awful spring forward thing, are we? I thought we gave that up for Lent, right? Oh, no Stabby Day. Well, then no Stabby Day tomorrow, but we will all act in a way to protect ourselves from Theodore Edgecombe's for lack of rememberosity, because it will continue. I forgot that. But I will see you guys then. Be sure to check out tonight. You have Friday Night with Expert at 9:15, and there'll be a whole bunch of other people. And then, yeah, sorry, this is, you know, I'll take a slow trial. I'm not gonna lie, than having to hear about horrible stuff happening to children for a while. So I'll take a trial where everyone seems to have taken Ambien for some reason. But then we will get back, and hopefully this will speed up or heat up a little bit. I hope. Bye, you guys. Oh, where am I going to send you guys to? That is the question that you guys were probably wondering, and I just almost forgot to send you somewhere. So let's see where we can send you guys to. Oh, well, let's see here. Looks like upcoming. They're all upcoming. Okay, oh, it looks like Ada K is doing something with the Monica Cementi trial. So that is good, and I will send you guys over there. Have a lovely day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye, you guys. I will make sure they leave those out, Brandon. Sorry about your eardrums.